Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the second day of the Africa Bank 4.0 Summit. And this is Fahad Ali Akmal with you, the event show director. Happy to welcome all of you back onto the second day of the event. And I would like to request Mr. Akshaya Kaur, the conference chairman, to say a few words and take the opening forward. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second day of this conference. Welcome to this digital leaders panel. And the topic is very interesting. It's about investing in human emotion, bringing the human experience in banking. Wow. I didn't even know that banking had any human connections. I thought it was only about making money. But it's a very interesting topic. And Dennis, welcome to the panel. We're really looking forward to your participation, especially from an SME perspective. And so we've got a very nice mix over here, and I'm sure it's going to be an enjoyable session. Now, the hype. Well, I say that use the word hype. It's actually hype and reality about digital transformation is so exciting that it sometimes makes it difficult or easy to forget the main player in this paradigm, which is the customer. And the fact is that technology works the same way, whether it is implemented by Althea's team or Suleiman's team or Dennis's team or Akshay's team. I think it is the thinking behind the technology, which focuses on customers and what the customers may need, and the creativity, which actually makes a difference. There are new concepts coming into this. Just the other day, I read about emotional customer intelligence. It's not just the customer experience, but emotional customer intelligence. But that's a whole topic. We can talk endlessly about it. But essentially, kind of talking about the importance of about how the customer feels, and how, are they stuck in inertia? Do they have self-doubts? Can we do it? Will we start losing money if we do it? And then the cynics who say, I've seen all this before. I've always taken decisions by the seat of my pants. What is this data? Why do we have to use data? So there are all these factors. So to kind of kick it off, how does technology actually enable banks and digital financial services to deliver a huge in the digital realm? And the floor is open. Suleiman, Althea, Dennis, who would like to kick it off? Please.
A great introduction, Akshaya, and again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on where you're tuning in from the world. It's a pleasure to be participating again on the to our audience on this very important topic and how human centricity can be brought into the banking and the larger financial services practices. I would really like to start with your statement, Akshaya, on whether at all banking has ever been human centered or accommodating the needs of the end constituents. If I want to put it in a more diplomatic way.
I was never known for my diplomacy.
No, I'm not a diplomat either. So you will hear more of that as we progress with the conversation. So really, I think the acceleration that we have been seeing, wake up call to revisit and reconsider practices, business models, value propositions, and ways to interact with the end constituent. And I also would like to recall and quote you again, Akshaya, from yesterday's conversations in one of the panels, where you said, customer nowadays is dictating. So the era where customer was king is over, and now customer is truly in a dictator seat. And what really enables that attitude by customers is the variety of choices and the speed at which these choices are being developed and rendered. So that's already a fact, right? And we cannot deny it. In my capacity as somebody who represents the banking sector in a large geography like the Arab region, we are definitely starting to see more cautious caution being exercised towards what really our customers' aspirations are, and how can we meet them, and fulfill those aspirations. Those efforts are to be. So the reality is we are still far behind on meeting our constituents, our end constituents, where they want us to meet them, right? So and how do we design products and services that are human customer as before we start developing our innovations. Definitely human centricity is a whole discipline by itself, and it has been developing over the years, and now there are ways it could be established within an organization regardless of the industry. It doesn't only apply to financial services, it applies to many other industries as well, and to retail, to transportation, and so forth, so on. So it is already in practice by several industries. What, in my opinion, my 2 cents on how we can best incorporate human centricity in our financial services business models. I would like to give an opinion on what may be delaying the progress in meeting those aspirations or the aspirations of our customers and our constituents. It may be that the whole digital transformation thingy, okay, that people have been talking about and now affecting very heavily the banking sector and making it a huge undertaking, may have negatively impacted the progress of the financial institutions. Okay, so think of it this way: if I am a bank and I want wholeheartedly to jump on this and adopt digital in whichever way, right? If I am being faced with a mandate to digitally transform my organization and re-engineer it, restructure it, all what it takes, that makes it a massive undertaking, right? So that is bringing a lot of worry, doubts, and caution into the boardrooms that may be playing out negatively to authorizing investment decisions with regards to those massive digital transformation undertakings. My advice is for my fellow bankers and peers within the financial services industry is really to take an incremental approach to it. And that is going to be to bring me to the human centricity element of our conversation. When we look into an organization, and a bank is broken down into capabilities, right? If I model the bank with from a capabilities perspective, there are three categories of capabilities. There are the customer-facing capabilities, there is the supporting capabilities, back office and everything else, and there is also the strategic and direction setting capabilities. Now, if I want to bring human centricity into my business, into my enterprise, where do I need to look and where do I need to invest technologies? On which capabilities? Do I invest technologies on the supporting capabilities or the direction setting capabilities or the human and customer centric and customer facing capabilities? If you want to reap the benefits of the quick wins, you should start with those capabilities that are in immediate touch with customers. So there is a good way around it, right? And you can still, even if you have a heavy legacy on your shoulders, being an incumbent who has been in the market for decades, right? You can always look at your capabilities map, identify those capabilities that are in and touch points with your end constituents, and there is where you need to invest on technology and leverage the emerging technologies to enjoyable one. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think Suleiman, we are the net is going in and out.
So just to conclude on that, so it is really where we need to invest is on customer-facing capabilities. That's where banks need to look before they try and make it a huge undertaking that would slow down the whole thing. The market cannot wait. The customers are eager to be served in the best possible way, and they are learning from their peers in every part of the world on how these other constituents living in the West or in the East are actually receiving financial services. So there is no time. We need to immediately tap into those capabilities that may be hindering our value propositions and the journeys that we extend, through which we extend our value propositions to our end constituents, leverage the emerging technologies that will make these journeys enjoyable, seamless, and so forth, sure, in order to make progress.
Sure. So Dennis, what are your views? Because there is a tendency amongst some of us to focus on retail. What is your view on this perspective, from the SME perspective, where obviously you would replace the individual by the institution or the commercial entity?
Thank you very much, Askania, and lovely comments from Suleiman. Also greetings to Mrs. Davis. Okay, so I think you spoke what is top of mind to me, because it's easier to come out with a model for the retail market when you're talking about investing in human emotions and you want to replicate human experience to digital touchless interfaces in banking. The challenge with SMEs is that these entities, these legal entities are not human beings, they are businesses. So even though we recognize the fact that they are owned, operated by human beings, but they are essentially a living thing that is a business, that is an ongoing concern. So bearing that in mind, the simple answer is artificial intelligence, but question is, how do you begin to together to create something is you must sit down with the customers. You must observe the customers at the minimum. You can interview them, but there are certain things you won't get during an interview. So it makes sense to also sit down and observe them. And from that, you get some clarity as to how to begin to build touch points. The next thing I will talk about, and this is really very human, it's feedback. So for instance, if I hit my skin, I'm going to get, my skin would have feedback that goes all the way to my brain and tells me, hey, that wasn't really very nice. When you bring that to the experience of an SME who is interfacing with a banking application, it makes sense to have an application that is automatically responding to whatever input or whatever he's experiencing. So if, for instance, he's having frustrations trying to log in, the system should be able to identify that, hey, you're having issues trying to log in, and should be able to come up with some interventions or with a suggestion or with a way to automatically help him at the automated level before you start bringing in a human connecting to a human entity who would now take him through it or take the person through it. So I think it's very critical to have that kind of feedback mechanism built into systems. You know, so someone is having to beyond logging in, you're trying to initiate a transfer, you're trying to check your transactions and you're having difficulties. It's you're trying to dream what's going on with this transaction. The system should be built, you know, so the perspective should be that the system based on AI should be built in such a way that it's able to track these kind of interactions. So you're talking about, well, this is on the foundation of artificial intelligence. We are talking about checking their inputs. So, I mean, what part of the screen are you touching? What keys are you typing on? What module on the interface, could be a mobile app? What module are you in? And then historically, what have you typically done whenever you came to the touch point? You know, so those kind of things are learnings that an artificial neural network that is properly built and trained, because it's an ongoing thing, can bring to bear. I think this is a framework that there are many things that we would see once we start this journey, things even I can't see right now from just speaking, but once we start the journey, there are many things that would surface. The other thing which is very key for SMEs, and I think in banking, we're only just beginning to realize this in recent years, is that for SMEs, banking transactions are not all they do. So they actually run a business. It's an approach that has been deployed in retail. You know, so you now begin to create lifestyles within the retail app. So let me use a banking app as an example. So people are being pitched to log into and interact with their banking app beyond transactional things to do. You know, so there's so many other things that you are pulled into to carry out on your banking app. And I think we're beginning to see the SME segments within the banks begin to move towards this direction. Because typically for an SME, he sells, he's a going concern. You know, so can we include a sales application package that connects to his bank account and has an interface that connects to his point of view, you know, and on the non-financial services aspect of it. So there's a lot that can be done.
You've got on mute.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. So, in terms of non-financial services, a lot can still be done in terms of helping them to build their capacity, both as individuals and also directed at the business, exposing them to the right kind of mix of communities, like-minded communities where they can learn and grow. And as SMEs, all SMEs like the fact that they can have access to grants. So exposing them to those kind of things just be built in, so when they come into a digital banking app, for example, it's beyond transactional. They know that there's so much more that they can get. They know that the system knows them, understands their business, picks up from where they left off the last time, and reactions are automated. Feedback is automated. I think I'll leave it at that for now.
In fact, Dennis, you make a very valid point, because most business banking clients don't have separate functions to do HR, finance, sales, marketing. Probably one or two people or three people leading this whole thing. So how much you make it easy for them, the better it is. And that's a very good point that you make. You forgot one thing. The SME is also a retail client. Sure that the SME's spouse or partner, and it's the whole story. Sorry, I'm just being facetious over here. But talking about Althea, you are a chief data officer, and apart from being a managing partner at a very interesting organization. All this, whether it is a retail banking client or whoever, clearly data, intelligence, artificial intelligence, etc., have a role to play. What is your perspective on that?
Thank you very much. Really happy to be here to speak with all of you gentlemen and the audience about this. As many of you know, data is dear to my heart, and I truly believe that the role of data thus far has been minimal, but I think its potential, the probable and the potential role of data is humongous. I mean, if you think about what my colleagues, Dennis and Solomon, mentioned, it's all about being in the know. So in my opinion, I'll take the example of the SME. At the end of the day, if we look at things like Banking 4.0 and we say, what can you do with data? How can a bank utilize data to build that relationship with the SME community? I think the opportunities are literally endless. And I'm talking about, we started talking about the transactional layer, but the transactional layer is all about getting the functionality, the basic utility of the bank accessible. So storing the money, having a place, a safe haven to store their money, getting access to credit, much more can be done in that field. And then of course, making payments, but then auxiliary services, like just being in the know as a bank to know maybe this particular auxiliary service, as Dennis mentioned, is more, let's say, it'll be more financially profitable for the bank, but also more like a better uptake by the SME population in their areas and in their banking market. So being in the know about things, I really think that banking or that data has a huge role to play. So what am I speaking about specifically? Whether or not it's the utility, the basic utility of the bank to make that accessible, or it's the capabilities that Solomon discussed, to get in the know about what is, I think that data has a huge role. So very specifically, we want to make sure that the bank understand its customer, whether or not it's a business entity or an individual, it must understand its customer. And we know traditionally understanding the customer knowing the behavior of the customer and how to address that, the best way to interact with them, creating an amazing customer experience, and also fundamentally knowing the needs of the customer. These are not, let's say, strong points historically of banks, because the relationship between banks and individuals or SMEs or even big corporates was lopsided. So, in my view, I believe this concept that we talk about, the servant mentor bank, the concept is that the bank understands that they know much more about finance, getting access to finance, like we spoke about earlier with credit, making that, educating their customer to create storing funds, getting access to credit and making payments, then the bank needs to understand what are the roadblocks, but yet offer the individual SMEs or private people opportunities in and around credit. I mean, with an SME, it's slightly different, because getting access to grants or different types of interesting loans or financing, trade financing, these are the type of educational things where you can draw in the client, get them to trust you, get them to go to you first to get information, and then organically actually grow your market, where a lot of organizations So opposed to all of your, let's say, your energy and your confidence in purely technology, I do believe that banks should look a lot closer to the use of data, both inside their banks and very much also outside their banks, to get a feeling of the understanding of the client, the behavior of the client. So how do I get to the behavior? Observation is key, and data can help you with that in many, many perspectives. Dennis was talking about neural networks. I want to add in knowledge graphs to that. These are very powerful things to observe and understand the behavior, be at least reactive well, and proactive once you're on that run. And I think that data is something that can really help banking institutions stand out, because there is so much to be done in this area, not just data literacy, but also applying what we know and taking a different position as a bank, as a servant mentor. And I think if banks do that, they will really be cutting edge.
Thank you. Thanks, Althea. We've just received a question from the floor. Obviously, this conversation has touched off some queries over here. So I'll read the question. Big data and the Internet of Things make a huge impact to know a customer, especially from a retail perspective, their shopping behaviors, their interests, and many more. How can that complement SME business banking customers from the human emotion context? Who would like to take that question? Dennis, Althea, Suleiman?
Maybe I'll try to be brief. I'll just give my quick thoughts.
Sure.
So, like Althea said, it's big data or data, hence big data is very key if you want to understand your customers, because essentially you are tracking them, you're tracking their behavior. You're trying to understand their behavior by tracking their usage of your channel at various times and across different interfaces, if I should say. So for instance, touch points rather. So for instance, if I deployed a collection solution to my merchant SME, I want to be able to understand who are his buyers, when do they come into the shop, at what time of the day, at what time of the week, at what time of the month is he having the highest foot traffic, you know, and can I, based on that, understand, and I have a clear understanding of his cash flows, you know, so I could put in the lending product. I could come in with suggestions to help him scale. There are certain things that the data will be able to pinpoint, and most advanced analytics systems now even give some recommendations beyond what we would ordinarily have extracted just by looking at the data points. You know, so there's a wealth of feedback that we can give to the SME, you know, just based on the data points that we've seen, based on the, so we can even give him the demographics of his buyers. You know, we can tell him where are they coming from, what age ranges, you know, and what time. You know, there's so many things that can be value added details that can be shared with SME. I will stop at that point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone like to add on something?
Yeah.
Go on, Althea.
Yeah, just really briefly.
Ladies first.
Not a problem, not a problem.
And that's
Very
our area of
briefly.
expertise anyway. I'm gonna give only one statement.
Okay, sorry. Really quickly, I really believe that, you know, we're so used, like, you know, having this kind of corporate approach to doing things for the customer, or, you know, strategizing for the bank. I really think we need to just simplify it and just put ourselves in our human context and imagine that the SME, I'll pick on the SME right now, the business owner of that SME, they need a buddy, they need a financial buddy, and somebody to kind of just take their hand and say, hey, I've got some information here for you. Use the relationship building mechanism, I mean, based on data, give them insights, have a conversation. Do need to deliver the functions and the utility of the bank in a way that doesn't annoy them, that helps propel them forward. But you can also, like Dennis said, you can use all those insights to build not just the relationship and thus the trust, but also get insight to, hey, discover what else does the client need that we just didn't even think of. And I think that a lot can come out of those types of discussions that are organic, that would not come out of a questionnaire survey, because we all know that observing the customer is really knowing the customer better than them just telling you something explicitly. So that was my two cents to make it more
This
human.
pretty much said as well. I'm going to twist it a little bit so that I can contribute. You know, in addition to really big data and the wealth of instant process, when we want to understand the market better, the sentiment better, and be relevant to what SMEs are expecting us to send them or to give them, to offer them, I think there are big conversations that still need to happen. So, you know, in addition to big data, we need to hold big conversations with our customers, be it SMEs or individuals. And the more of those conversations we can accommodate in our bandwidth, and the more we can enable our people, our staff, to become good, you know, good at having these conversations with SMEs, the better. What we have been missing for decades is really empathy, right, between a financial services provider and a beneficiary, be it an individual or an SME or whatever. The empathy was almost non-existent, and now with the big data, AI, machine learning, and everything else, that definitely can do us a lot of analysis but it cannot do empathy for us, right? We still need to step up and do our empathy bit so we can make the right decisions and capitalize in the best possible manner on what technology can offer us.
Yep, that's amazing, because you guys have actually answered a question which I was hoping to ask without even asking it. So you talked about empathy, you talked about getting to be a buddy, which can actually make a bank extremely successful. I see Fahd is back, and when Fahd comes back, it's time for us to leave. So thank you ever so much for this wonderful discussion. I was thinking, maybe we should, the four of us, write a small paper on this topic, as a way of collaboration. But more on that offline. And
me three before.
Okay, so we've got
And we can have
we've got a quorum. Great. So I'll
keep it as well.
we'll. So
Yes.
thank you very much, and dear audience members, I hope you have been as inspired by the discussion from these really great thought leaders, all three of them, in giving their insight and input. So thank you very much. Thanks, Fahd, and I leave it to you to take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Fahd.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Althea. Thank you, Dennis. And thank you
Bye,
very
everybody.
much. Thank you very much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Digital Leaders panel. We heard a lot of stuff about the human emotion and why does that matter when it comes to digital transformation. We got an SME as well